In Friday's student survey, students requested video demonstrations of the class content, and that's the purpose of this video. For full disclosure, this isn't as highly produced as I'd liked. In fact, I kind of Frankensteined it together from previous content, but it does contain all the vital information that you need to know for steps 1 and 2 of Practice Technique 1, which is the content of Mastery Video 1. We won't be screening this video in lectures or labs, so please watch this on your own and begin practicing this as soon as possible. Throughout the video and on the printed instructions, there are references to playing this at the piano. I know that many of us don't have access to a real piano or even a keyboard this term. If that's the case, use a keyboard app and generate random pitches by closing your eyes and pushing one of the notes on the screen of your device. Over the years, students have also asked me if they can use guitar. In years past, we actually asked for piano, but given access issues, this year that's okay as long as you're able to truly produce a random note and you're not relying on muscle memory to generate a pitch whose relationship to the previous pitch you already know. If in doubt, use a keyboard app. All of the other instructions for this work just fine, regardless of the source of the sound. This video is broken up into 3 parts. The first part is an overview of the instructions along with some of my comments and demonstrations. In effect, it's guidance for what you should be doing in your daily practice as preparation for Mastery Video 1. The second part is Mastery Video 1 modeled, and the third part offers some suggestions for students who aren't able to do this right away. A note about part 1, it only contains steps 1 and 2 of Practice Technique 1 because that's the content of Mastery Video 1. Go ahead and check out later steps for your own practice, and know that we will be asking for steps 3 and 4 later in the term. Now, I go over the objectives in the first part, but I wanted to give you a little bit more perspective, something I share with the class when I introduce this practice technique in person. I've been teaching first-year oral skills for 7 years, but before that, one of my assignments in the music theory department was to teach the graduate oral skills review course. This class is taught to incoming graduate students who need remedial work in their oral skills, and it was a really great opportunity for me to learn how standard college musicianship curricula can leave serious holes in their students' abilities. One of the things I found shocking was that many of these students who were good enough students to be accepted to major schools had gone through many years of oral skills training without anybody actually teaching them fundamental oralization skills. If you're taking oral skills and you're not able to oralize the material, progressing through the curriculum becomes an exercise in educated guessing and can be tremendously frustrating for the individual student who truly has no context for how and why they are not demonstrating aptitude. It's like if you were aspiring to be a championship dart thrower, but you progressed through your training blindfolded, being perennially confused and frustrated at how hard it was to get better. These practice techniques are my attempt at teaching fundamental oralization and musicianship skills, and over the years they have a really great track record. If you put in the time, you'll get these skills. As you are practicing this technique, try to listen like a child. Be open and curious and welcoming to the sounds that you hear, almost as if this is a form of meditation. Even though the world is a crazy place right now, try to ignore the static in your head, the errant thoughts of what else you think you should be doing in that moment, or any judgment towards yourself you may be feeling about not getting it. Those negative feelings stand in the way of you actually getting it. And this final point belongs in the third part, which has tips for people who may need help with this. If you're not able to get this right away, don't cram and don't spend more than 5 or 10 minutes a day working on this. Because our brain makes these connections in our sleep, small practice sessions every day are far more effective than the same amount of time combined into one monster practice session, especially if that practice session happens to be the night before these are due. In my 10+ years teaching this, every student has been able to gain these skills if you just keep at it. Finally, the GEs and I actually really like helping students in office hours. So if you're struggling with this, come see us. We'd love to help. All right, here we are, top of the page. Practice Technique 1. The objective is to improve fundamental oralization skills and qualitative listening. So by that, what we mean with fundamental oralization skills is the ability inside our mind's ear to be able to basically reproduce things that we generally hear externally. So instead of passively just processing what we're hearing from the outside and physically going through our eardrums and making the sound inside of our, having our brain process that information. Instead, we're going to reproduce what we're hearing, but without actually hearing it. It's similar to, like, if you recognize, your mother's face, or if you can see your mother's face without actually looking at her. It's a similar type of thing. And then in terms of qualitative listening, what we're talking about is the other elements of sound, so not just the fundamental, but being able to hear the overtones above, which is another way of saying the timbre, being able to hear the articulation of the piano, etc. Okay, so here we are. Step 1, while not looking at your hands, strike a key at the piano. Strike the key again, listening carefully to the quality of the sound in your mind's ear. Let go of the key, and in the silence, see if your mind's ear can reproduce the quality and pitch of the sound being produced by the piano. So this is, we used to say, it's like your ear is playing back the tape. I guess now the modern analog will be, it's as if you're taking a voice memos recording and playing it back. So you're playing it at the piano the first time, listening, and then in the silence, you're playing back the tape in your mind's ear and trying to get an accurate picture of that. If this reproduction is not clear, continue striking the key while this picture of the sound comes into focus. Though your ear may draw itself to the harmonics that make up the timbre, focus your listening on the lowest note, the fundamental. For advanced practice, you can do the inverse and play the note and listen for the harmonics above. But for right now, we want to be listening down to the fundamental. When you're satisfied with the accuracy of this picture, sing the pitch. I'm going to back up for a second. Only when you're satisfied with the accuracy of the picture do you sing the pitch. You sing it on any syllable, la or do will work for now, while hearing the sound of the piano in your mind's ear as you sing. So it's essentially like they're almost like performing a duet with yourself, where you're singing, but at the same time in your inner ear, you're reproducing that in unison. Ask yourself whether the pitch you sang was flat or sharp relative to the piano. You can check the pitch with the piano, and then you can correct if necessary. Step 2 is to do the same thing, just with another random note, not looking. Okay? So here we go. So I'm going to play just a random note. Now in this silence, it's as if I took a recording of that note being played and I'm looping it in my mind's ear. And then when I feel like, oh, I'm hearing that pretty well, I'll sing la, la. And then if you want to, you can check at the piano and make sure la, la, that you're actually singing the exact pitch. So that's all there is to it. The next step is to play another random note. You can do the same thing, wait, make sure it's accurate, and then sing la. And then you can test it if you want. La. So that's all there is to it. So for your singing video, you're going to pick 4 random pitches and you're going to give yourself 5 seconds in between. So I will demonstrate that. Now, I already said 5 seconds in between, but let me just state that a lot of times when students do this, they'll go la, la, la. No, you want to actually wait the 5 seconds. That does a couple things. First of all, it ensures that you're actually developing this raw aural ability. Secondly, it tests how good your aural memory is, which is going to be important for putting together melodies and maintaining pitch center, etc. Okay, here we are. This is what your singing test will look like. La. 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 So note that I happen to play notes that I could kind of reach in my singing range. It doesn't have to be. If you do this and you want to sing it an octave or 2 octaves lower, that's fine. It doesn't matter. Just make sure that you're playing the same pitch class. Okay, so I think that's it. Let me just say a couple things about this. Some students struggle and say that they just, can't actually reproduce the sound. And to that I say, if you just do this each day, it will come into focus. I've had students that this has taken weeks, sometimes like, an entire term to get this ability. But through practicing this, like pretty much every single student always has. And when I say student, I don't only mean students in oral skills, but even like young bass students that I'll have that at the very beginning of our work together have basically like no sense of oralization and no sense of pitch. Just if you do it, you'll get the skills. Don't do it the first time and go, I can't do this, and then don't do it again. Just put in the work and you'll get it. Something else that students sometimes struggle with is, a big thing is just not singing the right pitch, okay? So if you do that, and I'll demonstrate what that may look like. Say student goes, la, just sing up or down until you feel like what you're singing is right. So I'll do it from a different area, and I'll sing up or down until I feel like I've matched. La, I'll try up. La, okay, I'm pretty satisfied with that. So just sing up or down until you get to the pitch. You're never going to be further than a tritone away of either being up or down of the correct pitch. Another thing that students sometimes struggle with on this, and this happens a lot with people whose main instrument is in the treble range, and that is if they play a low note, sometimes they will hear a harmonic, most often the 5th, sometimes the 3rd. And so it happens a lot that students will go, and they'll go, la, and I think it's because they're hearing, I'm sorry, I played the wrong note there. They're hearing this overtone stick out. And so generally when students struggle with this, the big thing is they just don't have oralization yet, and so they are just guessing. But the second biggest issue is that they're actually hearing an overtone, which is actually part of the sound but not the fundamental. So if you find yourself in that situation, walk down from a scale and ask yourself as you're singing down which one sounds the most correct. So let's say that you did that. I'll go ahead and stay on the same pitch. And let's say you think it's la. Just sort of walk down a scale of where you think that is. In this case, because it's the 5th, you kind of know how the scale's going to go, but just go like la, 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 la. And you'll probably recognize that when you get to that last one that I sang, that one sounds more correct than the first one, which was the 5th. It sounds kind of abstract right now, but for students that struggle with this, that's really, really helpful to sort of walk down. Another way of thinking about it, if you're struggling and hearing an overtone above, I like to tell students it's not that you're hearing the wrong pitch, it's that there's a pitch that's more right. Meaning that if you're hearing the 5th, it's not wrong because the 5th is it's an overtone above that fundamental. So it's totally valid that you're hearing it. It's just that you have to get better at discerning the fundamental from the overtones above. Students sometimes will hear the 3rd. It's it's less common rather, but the same would apply. If you play this and you go la, you'll walk down la, la, la. Oh, the last one was more right than the first. Anyway, that's the process. If you don't struggle with this, the third part of this video is going to seem really, really weird, but if you are, hopefully it's useful.